Welcome everyone. You've made it this far into setting up Vault server from scratch. But if you missed our SQL installation and Vault professional installation videos, go watch them on LinkedIn and YouTube, and come back to learn about setting up Vault backups. If you've been following along the whole time, then come with me to get those backups going, and don't forget, like, follow, and subscribe for more content like this. When setting up Vault backups, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have enough space on the server that you're getting your backups on. So in our case, we're going to go into our folder. We're going to check our K drive. K drive has enough space to get our backups, and maybe even more than one at a time. So that's where we're going to go ahead and get these created. We're going to open up our K drive, have a backups folder, and then we have a B folder right now. Let's go ahead and create an A folder. We'll go into why I'm doing this in a little bit here when we go into the actual script. In our case, we're going to create more than one backup at a time, having a backup for our backup. The other thing to keep in mind, though, when you're getting these backups through Vault, is that you don't want to leave them just on this K drive, right? Your backups are going to exist on your local server, so you want to make sure that you have a secondary method of getting these backups off of the machine. So if something does happen to the machine, you're able to recover from the backup that is external. So there's a couple of ways to do this. You either have a cloud service or a third-party backup service like Veeam, or you can use an external hard drive. So move these backups off of this location to an external hard drive separate from your environment, therefore keeping it safe from any attacks that may come upon them. Now that we have our folders, let's go ahead and create our script. I like to create my script in a TXT file or a text file because I don't run the risk of running the backup by accident when I'm editing it or opening up the file. So if you double click the file in this case, it just opens up in Notepad, which I'm able to edit, as opposed to if you have it in the correct file extension like batch and you double click it, you run the risk of running it by accident. There's three components to our backup script. The first one kills the ADMS if it's open. The ADMS being the Autodesk Data Management Server Console. We do that by running what's known as a task kill, and we tell it that we want to kill the connectivity ADMS console.exe. This first switch, the IM switch, tells it that it is the image that we want to kill. So we tell it that it's going to look for connectivity.adms console.exe. And then we want to tell it that we want to force kill it with an F, and we want to kill any services that were spawned from this very same task. So this will allow us to make sure that whenever we try to run a backup, there isn't already a data management console open that will cause issues or stop our backup from running, since ADMS doesn't allow you to have multiple instances open. The second part to our script is called Cascading. What we do is we continuously delete the older backup that we have on file and create a new folder where our new backup gets generated. The way that we do this is we run what's known as an rmdir, or remove directory. We give it the Q switch, which grabs all of the folders underneath our B folder, and we tell it to do it silently so that it doesn't prompt us asking us if we're sure we want to delete all of the folders. And then we tell it the location of the folder that we want to delete. The next thing we want to do is make our newest Vault backup now our B folder, so that we can create a brand new A folder and get a newer backup. That's where the term cascading comes, because as your older backup gets deleted, your previously run backup becomes now your older backup, and you can get brand new ones moving forward. So it allows you to get a constant cycle of backups without running out of space, which is, again, one of the things we checked at first, is to make sure that you have enough space to do this. So you do that by renaming. That's the easiest way. You tell it that you want to rename your current A backup as B, making it your older backup now. And then you're going to do a make directory, mkdir, to create a brand new A folder. Now what you should have at this point of the script is you should have a B folder with a backup in it already, and you should have an A folder with an empty directory in it. So now Vault is able to put the backup in that folder. And that's what we're going to tell it to do in this last part of our script. What you do is you navigate to the location that your ADMS or Vault is installed. For us, it's on the C drive. And you paste the connectivity.adms console.exe. You'll notice that this here is exactly the same one that we killed earlier. And again, the reason we do that is to make sure that we're not trying to run 2 sessions at the same time, because Vault doesn't allow that. If you need to grab the full location of where this is, you can navigate to the location that it's installed on. So in our case, again, it's C drive, program files, Autodesk, Vault Server 2025, ADMS console, and then we're going to scroll down to connectivity.adms console. If you want a shortcut on grabbing not only the exe plus the location that it exists on, if you do a shift right click, there's an option to copy as path, and you'll see here that once I paste it, it'll give us the exact same location. And then we want to add switches to what we want the ADMS console to do. The first one here we're going to tell it is that we want to run a backup. So -O, capital O, and then backup. -O being operation that we want the ADMS to run. -B tells it the location that we want this backup to run. So again, this location, this A folder that we just created, is the exact same one that we have up here in our cascading portion of our script. The next switches we have are -VU, which is Vault user. In our case, we have a Vault backup user created in our environment. And then -VP is the password for that account. So you'll need to either input an account that exists in Vault that has administrator privileges in order to run this Vault backup script. The next 2 switches that we have here are -DBU, which stands for database user, so your SQL user. We set that up in our first SQL session, as well as -DBP, which is the password to that SQL user. So these 2 here are actually the default username and password setup with Vault. If I really wanted to, I could actually eliminate these 2 switches, and Vault will assume that I'm using the default username and password if I don't have those 2 switches in there. If you do have a custom account and a custom password, that's where you would have to specify the username and the password using the DBU and DBP switches within your script. And then finally, the last 2 switches here are -S, which runs the backup silently, and -L, which tells Vault where you want your log to exist for these backups, or for the backup in general. So again, we actually have a set location in our backups folder under logs where we have a TXT file or a text file where our logs will get generated to. Go ahead and save this. And now that we have our text file set up the way that we wanted to, what we end up doing here is actually changing the file extension. Again, now that we know we're going to start running it, we can go ahead and change that file extension from a TXT to a BAT, which is batch. It's a Windows file that can be run through the command prompt. So if we change that, it's going to throw up a warning letting you know that you're changing the file extension. Are we sure that we want to do this? The answer is yes. We want to make sure that it's running as a batch. You'll see that the icon for that file actually goes and changes. Now this batch file, you can go ahead and keep it somewhere safe, somewhere secure. We have a location on our K drive again. So if we go into backups, you'll see that we have a scripts. We have one previously here generated, but we have a brand new one. So we're going to go ahead and copy it in here. This location is going to be important because when we create the task in Task Scheduler, we're going to need to know where the script lives. And that's actually our next step here. Once you have your script generated, once you have all the information populated within it, let's go ahead and run it on schedule, because although it is nice to run it manually or be able to run it manually, you want to make sure that it is running off hours or automatically as you see fit. So to do that, we use Windows Task Scheduler. We're going to go ahead and create a task. Right click into the white space and create a new task. Let's give it a name that will easily be recognized. So Vault Full Backup. You can give it a bigger description or a better description if necessary, if you feel necessary for other people to come in here and look at it, depending on how many people are going to be in your environment making the edits. So for this one, I can say Jose created for marketing. So now everybody will know why I created this backup script. The next portion here under security, this part's important as well. There's 3 things we want to make sure our account that's running this backup can do. The first thing is have access to where our files are located. So if you recall to our setting up Vault Professional video, we told Vault that the files are going to be stored on a certain folder in a certain drive. The user that is going to run this backup needs access to that drive. So it needs to be able to get in there and make copies of those files for the backup. Otherwise, yes, the task will kick off, but your backup will fail. The second thing is have administrator privileges. The reason for this is ADMS or Data Management Server Console requires administrator permissions to run. So again, if you run the task and then try to run the ADMS, it'll fail out because it can't open that up. And then the third one is a little bit niche, I would say, but definitely still required, and it's to have log on as batch as a permission on the server, and that's for the actual task. So if the account that you're trying to run it as doesn't have that role, the task will actually fail to start, and you'll start getting errors as it tries to kick off. So make sure that those 3 things are available for the account that you're setting here. You'll see here I'm using the KETIV admin, which has those permissions. The next thing you want to do is make sure that this task runs whether this user's logged in or not. You want to make sure that your backups are running even though you're not manually logged in. And then you want to make sure that it's running with the highest privileges. In the next tab under triggers, you want to set the schedule that you're going to be running these backups. So once a week is typically all right. If you want to run it more often, you can go ahead and do that as well. So we're going to go ahead and run it weekly. Let's say Friday, and we're going to say 8 p.m. That's usually when everyone's off of our systems here. So from now on, every Friday at 8 p.m., it's going to go ahead and run a backup. You'll see here that it gives you an idea of what your schedule looks like. And then the final thing you want to do here is under actions, we want to tell it what we want to run, which is the script that we generated. So you're going to go ahead and hit new. We're going to start a program, and we're going to browse to where we host our scripts. We're going to run this Vault vault-backup.batch. And we don't need to add any arguments or start-in options. So now, once you have those settings configured, go ahead and hit OK. It's going to ask you for the password of the account that you are using. So let's go ahead and input that. And you'll see that the task gets created. It'll give you a pretty good rundown of when the last time it ran was, which in this case it hasn't run yet, and when the next time it'll run is. Even though we have this on the schedule, it's very highly recommended that you double check after it runs to make sure that it ran successfully and to make sure that it continues to run successfully. Not only that, you want to make sure that your space on your drives continues to have enough space to host those backups. Again, as you add data, as you add files, that space for the files not only diminishes, but also it requires more space to grab the backups. So you're all set now with Vault backups. And there you have it. Whether you're setting up a brand new environment or upgrading your current environment to the latest and greatest version of Vault, having backups is definitely important. And we can help with that. So check out this customer story about Adelaide Systems Company. They were on an old Vault and now they're on the most recent version, taking advantage of the latest features and having no more worries with KETIV maintaining their Vault. Click on the link to find the full story.